With us now, Rich Studley. He's the president and CEO for the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. Great to have you with us.
Good morning. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Where's your green?
Right there on my logo.
So if we can, and obviously there's so much to talk about when it comes to Michigan's economy throughout this pandemic. We are one of the last states here in the United States to reopen. What are your thoughts about that?
As I listen to and talk to chamber members from Oakland County and Southeast Michigan and across the state, it's fair to say that employees and employers in Michigan have had a very difficult year. But Ronnie, one of the things I'm really glad to be able to share with you is I've been making phone calls the last few weeks, speaking with members of our board of directors from Southeast Michigan and across the state, and there is a tremendous sense of optimism about the future. We are making slow progress on reopening our state, but we are making progress. I serve on the Governor's Protect Michigan Commission to provide input on vaccine distribution. And yes, we'll continue to have challenges with COVID, but I think an important message to share with your viewers today is we're making tremendous progress on distributing safe and effective vaccines. In Oakland County, in Southeast Michigan, earlier this morning, I was on a call with local Chamber of Commerce executives from across the state, and in every region of the state, they report good progress with vaccines, and that's a very tremendous, very positive development for all of us.
And with that, have you been a part of any type of studies? Because I know in the beginning, last year when they were first talking about the vaccine, there was such a huge population that was saying, no, I'm not getting it. And it seems the opinion of the public is starting to change.
I think it's important that we're very respectful and understand that for every Michigander, this is a personal decision, and we all have different health circumstances to factor in. So what we've been saying to Michigan Chamber members is when vaccines become available, please seriously consider taking the vaccines. I think one thing we could all be very proud of as Michiganders is that one of the first vaccines to be distributed in Michigan and across the country is produced right here in Michigan at the Pfizer facilities in Kalamazoo and Portage. And personally, I grew up in Kalamazoo and Portage. I know people who work in those facilities. Pfizer is a good member. So I have confidence that they have gone through the research trials at an accelerated pace, but all of the information we have indicates that Pfizer and the other pharmaceutical research and manufacturing companies that have been given emergency use approval have not skipped a single step. I do think it's important that if people have questions or concerns, they speak to their local pharmacist, to their local healthcare provider, and make well-informed personal decisions. We don't require everyone to get a vaccine for the flu, but many of us do every year. And so I think there's a good track record that vaccines can be safe and effective for most Michiganders, most Americans.
Rich Studley with us here on the MegaCast. He's the president and CEO for the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. What a highlight, though, for the state of Michigan to be a part of the vaccine, not only here in Michigan, but across the world, but across the globe. We are the hope for this virus.
It's been very humbling and very encouraging to watch Michigan Chamber members across the country, whether it's great companies like Ford Motor Company repurposing their production lines early during the COVID crisis to make ventilators, not just for Michigan, but for states all across the country, to see great companies like Dow Chemical in Midland repurpose their production to make personal protective equipment and hand sanitizers, to see other great companies like Pfizer do in less than a year what ordinarily might take 4 or 5 or 6 years. I think as Michiganders, we can be proud as Oakland County residents or residents in Southeast Michigan. Industry in Michigan was the arsenal of democracy during World War II, and industry in Michigan has become the arsenal of public health, not just for our state and our country. So as Michiganders, we're doing our fair share and then some to help turn the corner.
We have a lot to be proud of, but there are still so many businesses that are suffering, and we need to recognize them. We've had more than 3,000 restaurants and bars closed down throughout the pandemic, countless other small businesses. The travel industry continues to be hit hard, and we have to remember all the small businesses because we're still not back in our offices. I know the chamber, various chambers have been behind a push to try to convince the governor it's time to get back to the office setting. Your thoughts?
Ronnie, we share your concerns. I think, to be fair, when you look back a year ago this month, it was the first time that the governor used temporary emergency powers to declare a statewide emergency. The early actions that were taken by the governor and the administration were necessary and important. I think looking back a year ago, no one could imagine that a year later we would still be living under a state of emergency. One of the challenges with government and bureaucracies is that typically when a government or bureaucracy expands its power, they have more authority. It's just the nature of bureaucracies that bureaucrats are very reluctant to relinquish that authority. We've been living now under essentially unilateral control of state government for more than a year. Other nearby states are making better progress on reopening safely. You are absolutely correct that 2 weeks ago, in cooperation with local chambers in Oakland County and across the state, the Chamber Federation in Michigan announced our campaign to end the office ban, to allow workers to safely return to office work, which we think they can and should do now, and also to really focus on reopening Michigan safely. COVID-19 restrictions were necessary and important, but the fact is that many of the restrictions that have been imposed on bars and restaurants and hotels and our travel and tourism industry especially have been among the most severe in the country, and those most severe regulations have only recently started to be lifted, while we see other states reopening safely. So we can and must do more. I think it is time for us to return to regular order, to public policy being debated by Democrats and Republicans in the state house. It's the role of the legislature to pass laws. It's the role of the governor to sign or veto. But we have to get back to our system of checks and balances, which depends on three separate and equal branches of government, not just the executive branch.
And with that too, Rich, we know no business wants the finger pointed at them for being a big violator of COVID-19, nor do they want an outbreak, because if they have an outbreak, that impacts their bottom line, because all of those employees are then going to be out of work and they're going to have to quarantine. Has that been part of the discussion with members of the Whitmer administration at all?
Yes, we work whenever possible with Michigan's governor to carry out good public policy, whether that governor is a Democrat or Republican. We want to work with the governor and the legislature to encourage job creation and economic growth. And so I participate in regular meetings with the director of the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, where my OSHA is housed, the state occupational safety and health program. We're in regular discussions with the director of the Department of Health and Human Services and other state officials. Whenever possible, we try to provide leadership. We try to provide constructive criticism. We try to provide input. Sometimes that input is well received. Other times it's not. And I think that the concern we have right now is we have to start turning the corner. We've been in a situation now where state government has been trying to micromanage the daily lives of over 1 million Oakland County residents, 10 million Michiganders. And at some point, and I think we're there, these top-down, one-size-fits-all regulations just don't work. People need to regain a sense of freedom and opportunity. We can wear masks and maintain social distancing and reopen safely, and now's the time to be more proactive about that. But the constraints that have been imposed on employees and employers have been devastating. We've had hundreds of thousands of employees, not just travel and tourism, but across the economy, lose their jobs. It's heartbreaking if you're a chamber executive, and I've been at the Michigan Chamber almost 40 years now. I am working with sons and daughters and even grandchildren of great family-owned and operated companies in Oakland County and across the state. And to see those businesses be closed, in many cases permanently through no fault of their own, frankly, it's heartbreaking. It's devastating for the employees and the employers, and we can do better. We can do more to reopen safely now.
Rich Studley with us here on the MegaCast. He's the president and CEO for the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. With that, Rich, though, how important has the chamber been for so many of these businesses? Because people such as yourself in our local chambers, you are the ones able to navigate the government red tape to try to at least get some help for some of these businesses.
The Michigan Chamber was established over 60 years ago by business leaders in Oakland County and Southeast Michigan and across the state. If you look back over the last 60 years, our members have stood with us and invested in Michigan and created jobs through wars, through natural disasters, through civil disturbances. We felt a very strong obligation last year to stand with Michigan Chamber members. We have one job at the Michigan Chamber, and that's to help our members be successful. We transitioned almost overnight from workshops and seminars to free webinars for members and non-members. Morning, noon, and night, we were working to listen to our members, help them get answers to questions about how to operate safely, and share information about the new rules and regulations relating to COVID. And so we worked very hard to stand by our members. It's our job to protect, connect, and strengthen our members. We've been able to do that. Chambers of Commerce in Oakland County are very strong, very supportive. We work in teamwork and cooperation with them. The Chamber Federation in Michigan is alive and well and a tremendous force for good, especially when we work together. And there's been that sense of collaboration between leading local chambers of commerce in Oakland County and across the state and at the Michigan Chamber as well.
So, Rich, look, everyone knows I'm not the sharpest tool in your toolbox, okay? I'm just a regular person here. I do try to follow the numbers, especially here locally. But am I missing something here when it comes to reopening our offices? Because to me, it's easier to reopen an office where you can space people out and maybe say, okay, you know, just like we're doing schools, right? On a hybrid day, okay, you're group A, you're group B, you come to the office this day, you come to the office this day. What am I missing here as to why that's not being, as of right now, we should know that, April 14th is when the order does expire, but MIOSHA is saying it could go beyond the 14th?
I think one of the challenges we have with state government's response to COVID is there's a Japanese saying that if you see yourself as a hammer, the rest of the world looks like a nail. And the response from state government can be impactful, but it is often very blunt. And it is the unintended consequences of very broad, very difficult, very hard to understand, constantly changing rules and regulations that I think have frozen employees and employers in place. We have to persuade the legislature and the administration, but particularly Governor Whitmer and her administration, to allow employees and employers to operate safely. Much of the work we've done over the past year is to educate and inform. And as you noted earlier, employers work very hard to create jobs. Many of the small businesses that are members of the Michigan Chamber, they hire friends and neighbors and relatives, people from their community that they know and care about. So our members are working very hard to protect their employees and customers. We have learned a lot. We need to be given the opportunity to reopen safely so that we can get people back to work. That's the best guarantee we can have, that there'll be adequate revenue for local schools and state government. Other states are moving forward faster, and frankly, we just need to pick up the pace, be more creative, be more flexible, and trust employees and employers to work together to keep their customers safe and reopen successfully. We can do this.
Look, if I can go to the casino and gamble, I should be able to go to the office and perform my work, especially if I work in a cubicle.
You're correct. I think that part of the challenge is there's been a lot of misunderstanding. With very few exceptions, the vast majority of workplaces in Michigan have been safe and continue to be safe. Offices especially have not been a major or consistent source of outbreaks of COVID-19. And the good news is, as the vaccines are being distributed, it's not surprising that positive tests would be up. But increasingly what we see is if someone does have a case of COVID-19, it is relatively brief, it is treated successfully, and hospitalizations and deaths are down as vaccinations go up. And so we have to persuade the Whitmer administration to give employees and employers the benefit of the doubt, continue to focus on education and information rather than the sledgehammer of state government rules and regulations being used. The focus should not be on crime and punishment, but education, information, and voluntary compliance. That's where we can make the most progress quickly and in a way that is reasonable and efficient.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. And with that, Rich, how can people, if they want to support your effort and your movement, how can they do so? Should they call their elected leader, call the governor's office? What do you want them to do?
It's very important that your listeners, your viewers speak out. It is very timely and very important to call your state representative or your state senator to say, end the office ban now. We can reopen Michigan safely. To learn more about when and how we can reopen Michigan safely, please visit the Michigan Chamber's website. Please visit a special website for our campaign. Everyone who's listening and watching today is welcome to join the campaign to reopen Michigan safely at reopenmichigansafely.com. You can sign the petition. If you're a business, a local chamber, a trade or professional association, you're welcome to join the coalition and use more. We can do this together, but we've got to pick up the pace and get Michigan moving forward again.
I know that the governor in the past has said that she doesn't respond to public pressure, but we do know that when the parents and the students did a big rally on, at the state capitol, a few days later she did, release some of those bans as well. So I think it does work. Are you planning a protest anytime soon?
We're focused on a strong and positive message. We want to encourage and support and educate and inform. I understand, I think, what the governor was saying about not overreacting to protest, but I agree with you, Ronnie, that responsible government officials often, and frankly most of the time, will listen, will learn, and will respond to messages from their constituents about how we can do better. So that's the approach that we're taking. We think it is a better fit for chambers of commerce to emphasize the positive about what we can accomplish together when government steps aside and lets us work cooperatively in the private sector.
And with this, is there a measure with some of these businesses for employees that maybe don't feel safe coming back to the office for them to allow them to continue to work from home?
That's a great question, and that's part of the reason we're asking that the current MIOSHA rule, which starts out by prohibiting in-office work, should not be extended another 6 months. Every employer will respond differently, at the Michigan Chamber. We have a couple of employees with health conditions, and it may be quite some time before they return to the office. We have other employees who are younger, in good health, or have already been vaccinated and are very anxious to return to work. So every employer I've spoken with is going to be looking at the workspace, each employee individually. I think this will happen very gradually overnight. What we're asking is that state government would give us the opportunity to show that our members can reopen safely and we can get Michigan moving forward again. For these top-down orders to continue for another 6 months would be unnecessary and have really an extremely negative impact on our economy. We've got to start focusing on Michigan's economic health in addition to our public health.
Well, and the good thing, as you said, the vaccines are up. The number of hospitalizations continues to decline, along with the number of deaths. Rich Studley with us. He's the president and CEO for the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. So great having you with us. We appreciate your time and your conversation as well.
Thank you. Glad to be helpful. Stay strong, stay positive, stay well.